Don't touch that. Janelle Morrison's hand pulled back from the hallway table. She was just steadying herself. Dr. Patricia Thornwood descended the stairs, eyes cold. What are you doing up here? Mr. Whitmore asked me to. I don't care what he asked. Thornwood's voice dropped lower. Listen carefully. Real professionals are working with Dylan today. Certified specialists. People with actual degrees. She stepped closer. Too close. You're here to clean toilets, not to interfere. Your kind always thinks you can just insert yourselves where you don't belong. Janelle's fingers tightened around her supply caddy. Use the service stairs, stay in the kitchen, and if I see you near Dylan's wing again, you'll be looking for a new job. Understood? Janelle's jaw tightened. She turned toward the back. But 72 hours later, this woman they humiliated would reach Dylan in ways no credentialed expert could. 4 hours later, Janelle was upstairs, second-floor hallway, far from where Thornwood could see her. She pushed the cleaning cart quietly. The vacuum could wait. Mr. Whitmore had specifically asked her to tidy this wing. A door opened down the hall. 3 specialists emerged from Dylan's therapy room. Their faces said everything. Another session. Another failure. Dr. Thornwood led the group. He's simply unreachable. The neural pathways aren't forming. I've said this from the beginning. A younger therapist followed. Maybe if we've tried everything. Thornwood's heels clicked toward the stairs. Some children are beyond help. The sooner Mr. Whitmore accepts that, the better. They descended, voices fading. Janelle noticed movement near the floor. Dylan sat against the wall. 7 years old, small for his age. His hands moved in repetitive patterns. Fast, then slow. Fast, again. Most people would see a child stimming, acting out, lost in his own world. But Janelle had spent 12 years watching hands speak. She set down her spray bottle, knelt on the carpet, watched. Dylan's right hand touched his throat. Light tap. Then both hands made a flowing motion downward. Then he pointed. Sharp gesture. Frustrated. He repeated it. Throat, flow, point. Throat, flow, point. His water bottle sat 3 feet away, just out of reach. Janelle's breath caught. She'd seen this before. Elena used to do something similar before Janelle learned proper ASL, creating language from need. Slowly, carefully, Janelle copied the gesture. Throat touch, flowing hands. Then she reached for the water bottle. Dylan's hands froze mid-motion. His eyes lifted, found hers. For a long moment, neither moved. Janelle extended the bottle toward him. Dylan stared at it, at her, back at the bottle. He took it, drank deeply. Then his hand moved to his chest, palm flat. He spread his fingers outward like a flower opening. Janelle knew that gesture. She'd taught it to Elena years ago. "Thank you," she whispered. "You just said thank you." Footsteps at the end of the hall. Richard Whitmore stood there, frozen, watching. He walked forward slowly. His voice came out rough. "What did you just do?" Richard Whitmore's private study smelled like leather and old books. Warm lighting, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Janelle sat on the edge of a chair, hands folded, still in her uniform. She didn't belong here. They both knew it. Richard paced behind his desk. He'd been silent for 30 seconds. Finally, he stopped. "Mrs. Morrison, I need you to explain what I just saw." Janelle's voice came out carefully, measured. "Mr. Whitmore, I don't want to overstep. You gave my son water." He leaned forward. The therapy team spent 90 minutes in that room. He wouldn't look at them, wouldn't respond. They left calling him unreachable. His jaw tightened. You knelt down for 10 seconds. He looked at you. He communicated. He said thank you. The silence stretched. I'm not asking as your employer, Richard said quietly. I'm asking as a father who just watched his son connect with another human being for the first time in 6 months. Please, how did you know? Janelle took a slow breath. Dylan wasn't making random movements. He was signing, just not in any language your specialists know. They said he can't learn sign language, that his brain doesn't process. They're trying to teach him their language. Janelle's hands moved as she spoke. Nobody's trying to learn his. Richard sat down, really looked at her. How do you know about sign language? Here it was, the moment she'd have to explain. My daughter, Elena. She's 12 now. She was diagnosed deaf at 6 months old. The words came faster now. My husband died when she was 1. Life insurance barely covered the funeral. I couldn't afford interpreters, couldn't afford special programs, so I taught myself. You taught yourself? Library books first, then YouTube videos. Free ASL classes at the community center. 12 years of learning from anyone who'd teach me. She met his eyes directly now. I'm not certified, Mr. Whitmore. I don't have degrees on my wall. But I've spent every single day for 12 years communicating with someone the world calls disabled. I learned to see language in places most people miss. Richard's pen tapped against his notepad. A rhythm. Thinking. You said Dylan is using his own language? Linguists call it home sign. When deaf children don't have access to formal sign language, they create their own system. It has rules, grammar, consistency. It's real language, just personalized. She leaned forward slightly. Dylan's therapists are trying to force his brain into their box. Standard ASL, standard methods. But his brain doesn't work standard. So he invented his own way to communicate. And everyone's calling it failure. The leather chair creaked as Richard stood. He walked to the window, looked out at nothing. Can you learn it? His language? I think so, if he'll let me. And then what? Teach us? Teach him actual ASL once you've built that bridge? That's the idea. Richard turned back. Dr. Thornwood has 3 PhDs, 20 years of experience. She's published in every major journal, and she just told me my son is hopeless. He crossed his arms. You clean houses for a living, no degree, no certification, no credentials. Janelle started to stand. Mr. Whitmore, I understand. Sit, please. She lowered back down. Here's what I know about credentials, Richard said. My company's best software engineer never finished high school. My head of security learned everything from military field experience. My most profitable investment came from a 19-year-old college dropout. He walked back to his desk. Degrees tell me you showed up to class. Results tell me you can do the work. The pen tapped again. I'm not asking you to replace Dylan's therapy team. I'm asking if you'd spend time with him. Document what you see. Build this bridge you're talking about. Janelle's throat tightened. If Dr. Thornwood finds out... Let me worry about Dr. Thornwood. His voice was firm, final. You'll have full access. His therapy records, his medical files, his daily schedule. Everything. He opened a drawer, pulled out a leather journal, set it on the desk between them. My wife kept this. Observations about Dylan before she passed. Maybe it'll help. Janelle stared at the journal, the weight of what he was offering. Mr. Whitmore, what if I fail? Then we're exactly where we are now. But if you succeed... He pushed the journal toward her. My son gets his voice back. To understand why Janelle said yes, you need to know about a Thursday afternoon 11 years ago. Howard University, linguistics lab. Afternoon light through tall windows. Janelle Morrison was 27, bright, hungry, presenting her research on nonverbal communication patterns in isolated communities. Her advisor leaned back in his chair. "This is PhD-level thinking, Janelle. You could make a real contribution to this field." She smiled, saw her future. Professor Morrison. Research. Making a difference. Then her phone rang. Hospital. Her husband Marcus had collapsed at work. Cerebral hemorrhage. They were doing everything they could. He died 3 hours later. The funeral was on a Tuesday. The eviction notice came 2 weeks after that. Life insurance barely covered the burial plot. Elena was 14 months old. 1 month later, Janelle packed her thesis notes into a storage unit she couldn't afford to keep. Sold her textbooks. Dropped out. The first house she cleaned belonged to a lawyer. He didn't look at her when he handed over the key. Nobody looked at her anymore. She wasn't Janelle Morrison, linguistics scholar, anymore. She was the help, the dropout, the single mother who couldn't make it work. Her intelligence didn't disappear, but everyone's ability to see it did. That was 11 years ago. Now, in her small apartment, Elena sat at the kitchen table doing homework. "Mom?" Elena's hands moved in ASL. She'd been signing since she was 2. "You're really going to work with Mr. Whitmore's son?" Janelle signed back. "I'm going to try." "With the language stuff? Like what you studied?" "Yes, like that." Elena's face lit up. 12 years old, beautiful, smart, everything Janelle had fought for. "You never talk about college. Do you miss it?" The question hit harder than expected. Janelle set down her coffee mug, signed slowly. "Every single day." Elena came over, hugged her mother tight. "You're going to be amazing. You know that, right?" Janelle held her daughter, breathed in the moment. Some people get second chances. Most don't. Janelle Morrison was going to fight for hers. This wasn't just about Dylan anymore. It was about proving to Elena, and to herself, that who she was didn't end when circumstances forced her to become someone smaller. Tomorrow, she'd show them what they'd been too blind to see. Day 1, Monday morning. Dylan's playroom. Janelle sat on the floor, notebook open, pen ready, 10 feet away from Dylan. Dr. Thornwood stood by the door, arms crossed, watching. "We'll observe your methodology," Thornwood said. The word methodology dripped with skepticism. Janelle didn't respond, just watched Dylan. He was building with blocks, red ones, blue ones, stacking them carefully. His breathing changed when the tower got tall, faster, shallow. The tower fell. Dylan's hands shot up. Both palms are rising sharply, then dropping. His face crumpled. Janelle wrote, "Tower collapse. Both hands rise fall. Distress marker. Means failure or loss." 90 minutes. She didn't speak, didn't approach, just observed. The scratch of pencil on paper. Dylan's small sounds. The clock is ticking. Thornwood's impatient sighing. Day 3. Wednesday. Janelle had documented 23 distinct gestures, each one repeated, consistent, meaningful. Dylan's snack time. Mrs. Henderson brought apple slices. Dylan looked at them. His face changed. He pushed the plate away, hard. His hand tapped his throat. Sharp movements, head shaking, pushing motion with both palms. Mrs. Henderson frowned. "He's refusing again. This is the 3rd day." "Wait." Janelle stepped closer. "It's not a refusal. He's saying something." "What?" "The texture. He's saying the texture is wrong." Thornwood made a dismissive sound. "Behavioral observation, nothing more." "Try smooth applesauce instead of slices." Mrs. Henderson hesitated. looked at Thornwood. "Just try it," Richard said from the doorway. Nobody had noticed him arrive. Mrs. Henderson left, came back with smooth applesauce. Dylan's whole body relaxed. He ate. Mrs. Henderson stared. "How did you know?" Janelle closed her notebook. "Because he told me." Day 5. Friday morning, medical center, routine blood work. Dylan needed his quarterly tests. The nurse prepared the needle. Dylan saw it. Panic. His hands flew. Erratic, defensive. His breathing spiked. "We'll need to restrain him," the nurse said gently. "It's protocol. He always fights." Richard's jaw tightened. There has to be another way. Janelle knelt, eye level with Dylan. Her hands moved, slow, deliberate. First, the gesture Dylan used for hurt, finger-tapping location. Quick. Then she created something new, a soft touch to his arm, her fingers spreading outward slowly. She was asking, "Will this hurt?" "A little." Then answering, "But then it ends. Small pain. Then freedom." Dylan's eyes locked on her hands, processing. He'd never had someone explain what was coming, in his language, with honesty. Slowly, so slowly, Dylan extended his arm. The nurse's eyes widened. She drew the blood quickly, professionally. Dylan winced, but he didn't pull away. He kept watching Janelle's face. When the bandage went on, Dylan made a new gesture. His hand pressed to his heart. 2 firm taps. Janelle understood immediately. "Brave," she whispered. "You're saying you were brave." She repeated his gesture back to him. Validation. Dylan's small smile was worth everything. The nurse stood there, stunned. "In 3 years, we've never done that without restraints." "What did you do?" Richard's voice came from behind them, rough with emotion. She spoke his language. Dr. Thornwood watched from the doorway. Her face was unreadable. She turned, left without a word. That silence was more dangerous than any argument, because Thornwood wasn't defeated. She was planning. The formal dining room had been converted into a conference space. Long table, leather chairs, professional and cold. Richard sat at the head. Dylan's full care team filled the sides. Dr. Patricia Thornwood, Dr. Raymond Carter, pediatric neurologist, Dr. Allison Webb, child psychologist, Karen Foster, special education coordinator, and Janelle, at the far end, separated by 12 feet of polished wood. Thornwood opened her folder. "Mr. Whitmore, we need to address your unorthodox addition to Dylan's care team. Janelle has gotten results. Anecdotal results." Thornwood's tone was surgical. "Dylan has good days and bad days. Mrs. Morrison happened to be present during good days. Correlation, not causation." Dr. Carter leaned forward. "Home sign systems are documented, yes, but they're limiting. Dylan needs standardized ASL for long-term development. Encouraging his invented signs could actually delay real progress." Karen Foster adjusted her glasses. "There are liability concerns. If something happens to Dylan in Mrs. Morrison's care, and she has no credentials, no training, no certification—" "The legal exposure is significant," Thornwood finished. Dr. Webb's voice was softer, almost sympathetic. "I appreciate Mrs. Morrison's enthusiasm. I really do. But therapeutic relationships require professional boundaries, training in childhood trauma, understanding of attachment theory, the psychological implications of what she's attempting." She paused delicately. "Has she had any formal education in these areas?" All eyes turned to Janelle. She'd been shrinking in her chair, feeling smaller with each word, but something shifted. "May I respond?" Surprised silence. Janelle straightened. "Dr. Carter, You're right that standardized ASL is important long-term. But Dylan's home sign isn't invented nonsense. It's a linguistic creation, which actually indicates advanced cognitive processing. Her voice steadied. If we validate his system first, we build trust. Then we can introduce ASL as a second language. Research shows bilingual acquisition is easier than forcing a rejected first language. You know this. It's basic applied linguistics. Dr. Carter blinked. Dr. Webb, you're right, I haven't had formal training in childhood trauma. But I've read Dylan's entire file, every evaluation, every therapy note, including your published paper on nonverbal communication in traumatized children. She looked directly at Webb. Your own research supports exactly what I'm doing. The room shifted. Richard leaned forward slightly, something like a smile at the corner of his mouth. Thornwood's face reddened. Reading papers doesn't make you a professional. You clean houses, Mrs. Morrison. That's not an insult. It's a fact. The words hung sharp in the air. We spent years earning our credentials. Degrees, certifications, clinical hours. You can't simply walk in with your bucket and mop and... Dr. Thornwood? Richard's voice cut clean. I'm going to stop you there. The steel underneath his calm was unmistakable. I respect credentials. I've paid for the best. But I also built a Fortune 500 company by recognizing talent wherever it appears. Janelle is producing results. If you can match those results with your methods, please, do it. He stood. But until then, she stays on the team. Thornwood's hands shook slightly. Then I resign. She gathered her materials, stood. You can't have it both ways, Mr. Whitmore. Professional standards exist for a reason. When this experiment fails, and it will, don't say you weren't warned. She walked out, heels clicking, door closing with finality. The remaining team members looked uncomfortable, but none followed. Dr. Webb spoke first. I'll stay, but we need documentation. Everything Janelle does, documented. Richard nodded. Agreed. The meeting ended quietly, but the real battle had just begun. 3 weeks later, Dylan Whitmore was a different child. Morning routine, kitchen, 7:30. Dylan's hands moved with purpose. He pointed to his chest, then made the gesture for blue, then pointed to his shirt drawer. Mrs. Henderson understood immediately. You want the blue shirt? Dylan nodded, smiled. It was the first time he'd chosen his own clothing. Janelle watched from the doorway, her documentation book filled with progress notes. Dylan's gesture vocabulary now numbered 127 signs, his own system, plus 43 standard ASL signs she'd taught him. He was becoming bilingual. Breakfast. Dylan made the sign for hungry, then pointed to the pantry, specific cabinet. Third shelf. He wanted the honey cereal, not the regular one. For 7 years, people had chosen everything for him. Now he was choosing for himself. Mrs. Henderson had learned Dylan's basic signs. She responded in kind, adding the ASL equivalent. Honey cereal, good choice. The data was undeniable. Communication attempts per day was 3 to 5, now 40 to 60. Behavioral episodes, down 70%. Eye contact increased from 5% of interactions to 60%. Dylan wasn't just communicating. He was connecting. Saturday morning, public park, first outdoor excursion in 8 months. Dylan wanted the swings. They were occupied. Old Dylan would have melted down, or withdrawn completely. New Dylan stood watching, waiting, then made his sign to Janelle. Wait. Then another. Turn. You want to wait for your turn? He nodded. 5 minutes later, a child climbed off the swing, approached Dylan. The child said something. Dylan didn't understand the words, but he watched the child's gesture. pointing at the swing, questioning face. Dylan responded with his own signs, his turn gesture, then held up 5 fingers, 5 more pushes, then you can have it. The other child didn't understand the specific signs, but understood the meaning. The child nodded, stepped back. Dylan's first successful social negotiation. Janelle sat on the bench, tears streaming down her face. This simple, ordinary childhood interaction. This was what $500,000 in therapy couldn't buy. Connection, agency, the ability to exist in the world as himself. That afternoon, Karen Foster arrived at the estate. She found Richard in his study. Janelle was there, showing him Dylan's progress charts. "Mr. Whitmore, I have news." Karen set down her folder. "Good news and complicated news." Richard looked up. "Tell me." The school district reviewed Dylan's progress. They're willing to mainstream him into their deaf education program, starting next semester. "That's wonderful." "Yes, but..." Karen's expression shifted. "They require all students to use standardized ASL exclusively. Dylan's home sign system won't be accommodated in the classroom." The room went quiet. "And Janelle can't accompany him. District policy. Educational aides must be certified teachers or licensed therapists." Richard's jaw tightened. "So Dylan's ready for school, but the school isn't ready for Dylan." "That's one way to put it." Janelle stared at her documentation. Months of work. Breakthrough after breakthrough. And now the system was going to undo it all. Success had created a new problem. Dylan was ready for the world. But the world still wanted him to fit into their boxes. The question wasn't whether Dylan could learn. It was whether anyone would let him learn his way. Whitmore Technologies headquarters, 42nd floor, corner office with a view of the entire city. Richard had called Janelle in for a meeting. 6 o'clock, after her shift. She still wore her uniform, felt out of place among the glass and steel. "I've been making calls." Richard gestured to a chair. "Dr. Elena Rodriguez, Georgetown University, Department Head of Linguistics." He handed Janelle a tablet. On screen, an email, long, detailed. Janelle's hands trembled as she read. "This is the most comprehensive documentation of spontaneous home sign development I've seen in 20 years. The linguistic analysis is graduate-level work. The methodological rigor is exceptional. Who is this researcher?" Janelle looked up. "She thinks I'm a researcher?" "Dr. Rodriguez wants to meet you." Richard leaned back. "She's offering academic sponsorship. You'd complete your degree in special education linguistics. Your work with Dylan would count as practicum credit." "Mr. Whitmore, I can't afford..." "Full scholarship. Already arranged through the Whitmore Foundation." The words didn't make sense. Janelle shook her head. "I don't understand. Why would you..." "It's not charity." Richard's voice was firm. "We fund promising research. This qualifies." "But I'd have to stop working with Dylan. I can't leave him in the middle of..." "Hybrid program. You continue with Dylan during the day. Classes are evening and online. It'll take 3 years instead of 2. But you'll have your degree, and more importantly, you'll have credentials to follow Dylan into the school system." Janelle set down the tablet. Her throat is tight. "Mr. Whitmore, why are you doing this?" Richard was quiet for a long moment. He walked to the window, looked out at the city lights. "My wife. Before she died, she made me promise something." His voice roughened. "She said, 'Don't let Dylan's disability be the only thing people see. Make sure the world sees the brilliant, creative kid he is.'" He turned back. "I've been so focused on fixing Dylan that I almost missed the parallel. I was looking at you and seeing the Maid, not seeing the person who was saving my son. This isn't charity, Janelle. It's me keeping my promise to my wife. Make sure people see what's actually there." The silence stretched, heavy with meaning. I'll need to talk to my daughter. Janelle's voice cracked. This means less time at home, more pressure on her. Elena's school tuition, also covered. Same foundation. Richard's expression softened. Smart kids deserve opportunities too. Janelle couldn't speak. Tears streamed freely now. Richard extended his hand. Partners? She stood, shook his hand, firmly. Not employer and employee. Equals. Richard opened his desk drawer, pulled out his late wife's journal, the one he'd given Janelle to study. Keep it. You've been continuing her work. She'd want you to have it. Janelle held the leather journal, the weight of trust, of belief, of someone finally seeing her. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you, Richard said back, for seeing my son. 6 weeks into Janelle's work with Dylan, his 8th birthday approached. The estate kitchen. Evening. Janelle was finishing up, wiping down counters. Richard entered. Unusual. He rarely came to the kitchen. Janelle, I need advice. He looked uncertain, vulnerable. The billionaire CEO lost. Dylan's birthday is Saturday, first one since his mother passed. I don't know what to do. Last year he couldn't tell us what he wanted. This year he can, but I'm afraid to ask. Afraid I'll get it wrong. Janelle set down her cloth. Have you asked him? How? Come on, I'll show you. Dylan's bedroom. Soft lamplight. The room was neat but impersonal, decorated by professionals who didn't know him. Dylan sat on his bed, reading a picture book. He looked up when they entered, surprised to see his father at this hour. Janelle moved slowly, deliberately. She demonstrated the signs. ASL. Clear and simple. What? Want. Birthday. Celebrate. Richard watched. Awkward at first. His hands moved stiffly. But he tried. Copied her movements. What? Want. Birthday? Dylan's eyes widened. His father was using his language, actually trying to speak to him. For a long moment, Dylan just stared. Then his hands moved. He pointed to a poster on his wall. An aquarium, bright fish, blue water. Then he made the sign for swim, his gesture for water, flowing hands. He pointed to himself, then to Richard. Janelle's voice was soft. He wants to go to the aquarium. With you. Richard's face crumpled. That's it? Just the aquarium? With you, Janelle emphasized. That's the important part. Richard sat on Dylan's bed. His hands were shaking slightly. He signed slowly with Janelle's help. Yes, you and me. Promise. Dylan's smile was enormous. Pure joy. He launched forward, hugged his father tight. Richard held his son, tears streaming silently down his face. 7 years. 7 years of distance, of barriers, of not knowing how to reach across the silence. And it took 4 signs to bridge it. This is what was actually at stake. Not Dylan's ability to communicate with therapists or teachers or the world. His ability to communicate with his father, to be seen by the one person who mattered most. Janelle quietly backed toward the door, giving them privacy. In the hallway, she paused, wiped her own eyes. Next morning, Richard found Janelle in Dylan's playroom. Thank you, his voice was rough, for teaching me how to talk to my son. I've been paying people to do that for 3 years. You're the first person who actually did it. Janelle smiled. Mr. Whitmore, you learned in 10 minutes what took specialists months. You know why? Why? Because you actually wanted to hear him. That's the only credential that really mattered. The school district required a formal evaluation. 3-person panel, 90 minutes, 1 decision. Dylan Whitmore would either attend mainstream school with support or be placed in a residential facility for children deemed too severe to integrate. Everything came down to this. The Whitmore estate living room had been converted into an evaluation space. Clinical, cold, a table for the panel, a play area for Dylan, Dr. Marcus Thompson, district psychologist, 50-something, kind eyes but bound by protocol, Susan Brennan, special education supervisor, practical, fair, overworked, and Dr. Patricia Thornwood, invited back as an external consultant. Her expression said everything. She'd come to watch this fail. Richard stood by the doorway. Janelle sat near Dylan, notebook ready. Dr. Thompson opened his folder. "Let's begin. Dylan, can you look at me?" Dylan didn't respond. Didn't understand spoken instructions. "Dylan?" Thompson tried again, louder. Nothing. Thompson made a note. Non-responsive to direct address. He held up a card. Red circle. "Can you tell me what color this is?" Silence. Blue square. "How about this one?" Dylan's anxiety was rising. His breathing changed. Hands starting to fidget. "Let's try basic ASL." Thompson signed slowly. Standard signs. "What is your name?" Dylan stared blankly. The signs meant nothing to him. Thornwood leaned forward. "As you can see, the child lacks functional communication ability. The progress Mr. Whitmore described isn't evident under proper evaluation conditions." Susan Brennan tried a gentler approach. "Dylan, sweetie, can you show us how you talk?" Dylan was shutting down, pulling back. His safe response when overwhelmed. He retreated to the corner, began rocking, hands over his ears. Thompson sighed, wrote more notes. "I'm seeing severe social communication disorder, inability to respond to multiple communication modalities. My recommendation would be, stop!" Everyone turned. Janelle had stood up. "You're evaluating him in a language he doesn't speak. Let me translate." Thornwood's voice cut sharp. "Mrs. Morrison, this is a standardized evaluation. We cannot modify Let her try." Richard's voice from the doorway. Final. Janelle moved slowly, sat on the floor at Dylan's level. Her hands moved. Dylan's language, his signs, the gesture for scared, then safe, then try. Dylan's rocking slowed. His hands came down from his ears. He looked at Janelle. She signed again, asking permission, offering safety. Dylan nodded, small, uncertain. Janelle turned to the panel. "Ask your questions. I'll interpret both ways." Dr. Thompson hesitated. Then, "Can he identify colors?" Janelle's hands moved. Dylan's system. Clear, simple. Dylan immediately pointed to colored objects around the room, made his color signs for each one. Red, blue, yellow, green. Thompson's eyebrows raised. "Can he express emotions?" Janelle interpreted. Dylan demonstrated. Hand on heart, spreading outward. Happy. Hand down his face, sad. Clenched fists forward, angry. Hands trembling, scared. Brennan leaned forward, interested now. "Can he sequence? Tell a story?" Janelle asked in Dylan's language. "Tell them about your birthday." Dylan's whole face changed, lit up. His hands moved rapidly, animated. His sign for father. Then aquarium. Gesture mimicking swimming fish. His sign for happy. And finally, a gesture that made Richard's breath catch. Dylan touched his heart, then pointed directly at his father. Janelle's voice was soft. "He went to the aquarium with his father. They saw fish swimming. He was happy, and he felt loved." The room went silent. Susan Brennan's eyes glistened. Thompson sat back, stunned. Even Thornwood had no immediate response. Richard spoke from the doorway, voice breaking. That's my son. That's who he is. He's not broken. He just needed someone to listen. Thornwood recovered first. This is pedagogically irresponsible. You're enabling a communication system that exists nowhere else. When Mrs. Morrison isn't available, Dylan will be helpless. You're setting him up for failure. Janelle stood, faced Thornwood directly. When I'm not available, he'll use ASL. We've been teaching him both. He knows 43 standard ASL signs now. He's bilingual. That's not limiting him. That's expanding his options. You're not a certified... I will be. Janelle's voice was steady. I'm enrolled at Georgetown, supervised by Dr. Elena Rodriguez, and I've been hired by the Whitmore Foundation as a linguistic specialist focusing on home sign systems. The news landed. Richard had formalized her position that morning. Thornwood's face reddened, but she said nothing. Dr. Thompson cleared his throat. Mrs. Morrison, what you've documented is remarkable, truly. But here's my concern. Can Dylan function in a classroom without you? Give him a trial week. Mainstream deaf education. I'll train one aide in Dylan's basic language system, just the essentials. Let's see if he can adapt. And if he can't? Then we revisit. But he deserves the chance to try. Thompson looked at Brennan. Some silent communication. They stepped into the adjacent room. Deliberated. 5 minutes. The longest 5 minutes of Janelle's life. The clock ticked. Dylan played quietly, unaware of what hung in balance. Richard's hand rested on Janelle's shoulder. Thornwood gathered her materials. Expression unreadable. The panel returned. Thompson spoke. Trial approval, 1 semester. Mainstream deaf education classroom with trained support aide. Monthly evaluations. If Dylan shows continued progress, we make it permanent. He paused. Mrs. Morrison, the district has 17 other children with complex communication needs. Would you be willing to work with them as a paid consultant? Janelle's throat closed. Yes, I'd be honored. Thornwood stood abruptly. I hope you understand the precedent you're setting. Thompson met her gaze. I do. We're setting a precedent that we listen to what works, regardless of where it comes from. Thornwood's jaw tightened. She walked to the door, stopped. When this fails, don't say I didn't warn you. The door closed behind her. Final. Dylan had been watching. He walked over to Janelle, made the sign they'd created together, hand to chest, spreading outward. Thank you. Then something new. Dylan's hands formed a circle, held it over his heart. Janelle's eyes filled. What's that? Dylan signed in his system. Clear, deliberate. Friend. The panel watched. Susan Brennan wiped her eyes openly. Dr. Thompson smiled. Mrs. Morrison, I think you just proved our point. Richard stepped forward, put his hand on Dylan's shoulder. My son has a voice now, because someone finally listened. Janelle knelt, hugged Dylan. 7 years of silence. Broken. Not by expensive specialists, not by credentials or degrees, by someone who cared enough to learn his language instead of forcing him to learn theirs. 6 months later. Georgetown University Auditorium. 300 people filled the seats. Speech pathologists, educators, linguists, disability advocates, journalists, academic conference. Bridging Communication, Innovations in Developmental Linguistics. The stage was simple. A podium, 3 chairs, a screen for presentations. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stepped to the microphone. Today we're presenting research that challenges everything we thought we knew about language acquisition in nonverbal children. She paused. Our presenter didn't have a degree when this work began. She had something more valuable, the humility to learn from a 7-year-old boy. Applause. Please welcome Janelle Morrison. Janelle walked onto the stage. Professional clothes, confident stride, her documentation materials under her arm. 6 months ago, she'd been told to use the back stairs. Today, she was presenting research submitted to the Journal of Child Language. She reached the podium, looked out at the audience. 18 months ago, a doctor told me I was a distraction to real professionals. Told me to stay in my place, use the service entrance, know my role. The room went quiet. Today I'm here because I forgot to stay in my place. Scattered laughter. Knowing. I want to start with a question. How many of you have ever been underestimated? Hands rose throughout the auditorium. Dozens. Then more. Keep your hands up if someone told you that you didn't belong somewhere because of your background, your degree, the way you look. More than half the room. Now put your hands down if you let that stop you. Most hands lowered, a few remained up. Nervous laughter. This is a story about not letting that stop you. More importantly, it's about what we miss when we decide someone doesn't have value before we bother to listen. The presentation began. Slides appeared on screen. Dylan's gesture dictionary. 200 documented signs. Video footage, split screen. Dylan at 7, non-communicative. Dylan at 8, bilingual. When we validated Dylan's spontaneous language system before introducing standardized ASL, his acquisition rate tripled. Why? Janelle clicked to the next slide. Because we signaled, your way of understanding the world is valid. Now let me show you additional tools. She looked out at the audience. This isn't revolutionary. It's respect. Video played. Dylan in his mainstream classroom, signing with other deaf students, standard ASL, fluent, natural, then recess. Dylan teaching his home signs to hearing classmates. They laughed together, played together. Dylan was thriving. The video ended. Dylan now functions in 2 languages, his intuitive home sign system and American Sign Language. He code switches depending on context, the same way any bilingual person does. Another slide. Statistics. Based on this success, the Whitmore Foundation funded a pilot program, First Language Validation Protocol. In 6 months, we've worked with 23 children previously labeled unreachable. 19 are now communicating effectively. 4 are in mainstream classrooms. The numbers were undeniable. Janelle stepped back. Richard Whitmore will share the parental perspective. Richard took the podium, composed, but emotion underneath. I'm a businessman. I believe in return on investment. I spent $500,000 on specialists, therapies, equipment, state-of-the-art interventions. He paused. I got incremental improvement. Another pause. I paid one woman, someone I'd barely noticed was brilliant, a fraction of that amount. She gave me my son back. His voice roughened. The lesson isn't about money. It's about who we decide has expertise. For 3 years, I listened to people with credentials tell me what Dylan couldn't do. It took someone without credentials to show me what he could. He looked directly at the audience. If you're a parent, an educator, a professional in this room, I'm asking you to look around. Who are you not seeing? What genius have you overlooked because it came in the wrong packaging? The applause started before he finished. Standing ovation. Richard stepped back, gestured. Dylan walked onto the stage. 8 years old now, confident. He wore a small microphone. An interpreter stood ready. Dr. Rodriguez knelt to his level. Dylan, would you like to share? Dylan nodded. His hands moved. Both systems simultaneously. His home signs flowing into ASL. The interpreter spoke his words. I was locked inside. Janelle found the key, not because she was smartest, because she looked. The simplicity of it, the truth. The entire auditorium rose. Applause thundered. Janelle stood there, tears streaming. This was real. This was happening. The conference ended. The media swarmed. Local news. Housekeeper turned linguist revolutionizes deaf education. Washington Post feature. When credentials don't equal competence. NPR interview. Janelle discusses broader implications for marginalized communities. Richard's LinkedIn post went viral. Photo of Janelle and Dylan. Caption. This is what hiring for talent, not pedigree, looks like. 2 million views in 48 hours, 1 week later. Georgetown Linguistics Department. Dr. Rodriguez's office. Janelle, sit down. Rodriguez slid a folder across the desk. You've been accepted into our PhD program, full scholarship. Georgetown wants to establish the Morrison Center for Home Sign Research. You'd be the founding director after graduation. Janelle stared. A center with my name? Your work is changing the field. We want to make sure it continues, grows, reaches every child who needs it. That evening, Janelle's apartment. Elena sat at the kitchen table. Homework spread out. 13 now, growing up fast. Janelle collapsed on the couch. Elena signed. How was PhD orientation? Terrifying, exciting. I don't know what I'm doing. Elena brought her mother tea. Role reversal. The daughter caring for the mother. Mom, you've known what you're doing since I was a baby. You finally get to do it. She sat beside Janelle. I'm proud of you. You know that? Janelle pulled Elena close. Baby, I'm proud of us. You held everything together while I figured this out. This is your win, too. 2 months later. Dylan's 9th birthday party. Not fancy, normal. Backyard. Bounce house. Kids everywhere. Deaf classmates. Hearing classmates. All of them communicating, signing, laughing. Dylan ran past. Pure joy. Completely integrated. Janelle arrived. Miss Morrison, educational consultant. Now. But still close to the family. Dylan saw her. Ran over. His hands moved. Clear. Emotional. Thank you for my voice. Janelle signed back. You always had a voice. I just helped other people hear it. Richard approached, holding an envelope. Open it. Inside, a certificate. Official. Embossed. The Sarah Whitmore Morrison Center for Communication Innovation. Dedication of the new linguistics building wing, named for his late wife, and for Janelle. Together. My wife started this by seeing Dylan, Richard said quietly. You finished it by seeing yourself. This honors both of you. Janelle couldn't speak, just held the certificate, full circle. Later that day. Janelle stood in the Whitmore estate foyer, the same marble floor, the same grand staircase, but she wasn't holding cleaning supplies anymore. She stood in the center of the room, not off to the side, not using the back stairs, equal, visible, valued. The woman who'd been told to stay invisible had become impossible to ignore. Janelle Morrison's story isn't just about one woman and one child. It's about a question we should all be asking. How many geniuses are we ignoring because they're wearing the wrong uniform? 2 years later. The Morrison Protocol spread across 47 school districts. Training materials, video modules, step-by-step guides for validating home sign before introducing standardized language. Success rate, 73% of previously unreachable children now communicating. The Whitmore Foundation. Second Chance Scholarship Program grew. 100 adult learners returning to finish interrupted degrees. Single parents. People from service industries. Requirement? Demonstrated talent, regardless of credentials. 623 people enrolled. Studying. Building the future they'd been forced to defer. Policy changed, too. 8 states passed legislation. Educational aides no longer required 4-year degrees if they demonstrated specialized competency. The Morrison exception. 1,200 people employed in special education who previously couldn't access the field. Dylan turned 10, fully mainstreamed, thriving. He taught sign language to hearing students now, both ASL and his home sign system. The teacher asked him to lead a weekly session. His dream? To become a teacher himself. Janelle's career transformed. PhD in progress. Defense scheduled for next spring. 3 published papers, co-authored with Dr. Rodriguez. Her TED Talk hit 4 million views. The language nobody learned. She consulted for school districts nationwide, still worked with Dylan weekly, not as an employee, as a friend. But here's what the highlight reel doesn't show: the cost. Janelle worked 2 jobs while doing graduate school. Elena learned to cook dinner at 13. There were nights Janelle fell asleep at her desk. Mornings, she questioned if she could keep going. Miracles don't happen without sacrifice, but she'd tell you, worth it. Every single exhausting day, worth it. 5 years after that first conference, another academic gathering. Dr. Patricia Thornwood approached Janelle at the coffee break. "Mrs. Morrison, may I speak with you?" Janelle turned, surprised. Thornwood's expression was different, softer. "I owe you an apology. I was wrong about your methods, and more importantly, about you." Silence stretched between them. "I spent my career believing credentials were everything, that the system existed for good reason. You showed me I was protecting the system instead of helping children." Janelle nodded slowly. "I appreciate that, but I also learned from you. Credentials do matter, just not as much as curiosity. I have both now." They shook hands. Not quite friends, but mutual respect. Growth looks different for everyone. So here's the question for you. Right now, watching this, who is Janelle in your life? Is it the janitor who notices when systems fail before the engineers do? The receptionist who understands customer psychology better than the marketing team? The assistant who's been quietly solving problems above their pay grade? Or maybe it's you. Maybe you're the one being overlooked, dismissed because someone decided your resume matters more than your results. Here's what you can do. 3 things, starting today. 1. Notice the invisible people, the ones society trained you not to see. Learn their names. Ask about their lives. You might be surprised who they really are. 2. Question credentials. Not to dismiss education. Education matters. But ask, does this person produce results? If yes, figure out how to make room for them. 3. Tell someone's story. If you know a Janelle, someone brilliant who's been overlooked, advocate for them. Use your platform, whatever size it is. One person speaking up can change a life. The Morrison Center for Communication Innovation opened on a Tuesday. Janelle cut the ribbon, Dylan beside her, signing to the crowd, Elena filming on her phone, proud, Richard applauding. The camera panned across the diverse gathering, former students, second-chance scholars, families of children helped by the Morrison Protocol, educators implementing new approaches, people who'd been told they didn't matter, proving everyone wrong. Janelle spoke at the opening. "My mother used to say, smart is something you are, educated is something you become. Today, I'm both, but I was always smart." She paused. Let the words land. The world just needed to catch up. Another pause. Don't wait for the world to catch up to you, and don't make anyone else wait either. The applause was deafening, but the real impact? The quiet moments after, people approaching strangers, starting conversations, seeing each other differently, one interaction at a time, building a world where talent matters more than pedigree, where intelligence is recognized regardless of packaging. where no one has to use the back stairs. Share this if you've ever been underestimated. Comment, who is your Janelle? Subscribe to Blacktail's Stories for more stories that challenge what you think you know, because someone's brilliance is counting on you to see it. Notice. Question. Advocate. The world changes when we decide everyone deserves to be heard.